Today on the Daily Scoop podcast from the Scoop News Group. It's Tuesday, March 25th, 2025. Welcome to the Daily Scoop podcast, where you'll hear the latest news and trends facing government leaders. I'm the host of the Daily Scoop podcast, Billy Mitchell. Thanks so much for joining me. Now let's dive into the day's top headlines. FedRAMP is getting another overhaul, one that will involve far more automation and a greater role for the private sector, the program's chief announced on Monday. Through FedRAMP 20X, the General Services Administration-based team focused on the program aims to simplify the authorization process and reduce the amount of time needed to approve a service from months to weeks, Director Pete Waterman said during an Alliance for Digital Innovation event on Monday. The private sector will also have increased responsibility over monitoring of their systems, he noted. In a critical change, agency sponsorship will eventually no longer be necessary to earn an authorization. For the time being, companies must find a federal agency to shepherd them through the FedRAMP process, which can be time-intensive and expensive. FedRAMP will also move from a baseline checklist approach for security and instead use key indicators as an abstract layer to align government compliance and modern security best practices. Waterman pointed to the example of encryption, which could be measured by a compliance tool built into code or ensured through services that override non-encrypted communications to meet that goal, rather than having a person look at a spreadsheet. So instead of having humans reviewing paper-based records, Waterman said, machines will provide validation capabilities. As a first step, FedRAMP has launched 4 community working groups, which give the public a chance to share feedback and focus on creating innovative solutions to formalize the program's standards. But in the meantime, Waterman said existing baselines will remain in place and that there are no immediate changes to the program. It's not yet clear how companies, assessors, and agencies that work within the FedRAMP structure will respond to the changes, though some initial reactions from cloud service providers were pretty positive. Brian Conrad, the authorizing authority liaison at Zscaler and the former acting administrator of FedRAMP, called their move a promising step. And Jessica Salmoraghi, who represents the Business Software Alliance, a technology industry trade group, similarly said the pivot was, quote, an encouraging sign. In other news, the Office of Personnel Management and the Departments of Treasury and Education are now barred from sharing individuals' personally identifiable information with DOGE representatives, a federal judge ruled on Monday. Judge Deborah Boardman of the U.S. District Court for the District of Maryland said in her decision that in granting associates with Elon Musk's so-called government efficiency initiative access to systems containing plaintiffs' PII, the agencies likely violated the Privacy Act and the Administrative Procedure Act. The plaintiffs, which were represented by a variety of federal associations and employee unions, as well as 6 military veterans, specifically cited the exposure of their PII to DOGE associates in Treasury's Bureau of Fiscal Service, which includes names, social security numbers, birth dates, birthplaces, home addresses, and telephone numbers, email addresses, and bank account information of Americans who have transacted with the federal government. For education, the plaintiffs focused their case on the management of the federal student loan system. And as the government's Human Resources Office, OPM, quote, maintains a host of systems with information about federal government personnel, the suit noted. The plaintiffs alleged that the unrestricted access to those systems provided to DOGE violated the Privacy Act because none of the parties, quote, requested disclosure or provided express written consent to the disclosure of their information to DOGE representatives. Additionally, they contended that DOGE staffers did not need to know their personal information to carry out their duties. For more news at the intersection of the federal government and technology, make sure to visit fedscoop.com. The Daily Scoop podcast is available on all podcast platforms. If you've already rated the podcast on your platform of choice, thanks so much. High ratings and good reviews of the show help more people find it. The Daily Scoop podcast is a production of the Scoop News Group in Washington, D.C. Adam Butler and Carlin Fisher help put the show together, and the entire Scoop News Group team contributes. We'll be back next week with brand new episodes. Until then, I'm your host, Billy Mitchell. Thanks so much for listening.